Welcome back to Sleepy History. Tonight, we are going on a journey to Victorian London. But do not worry about the chaos of the city or the cold dampness of the streets. We are heading to a place of warmth, intellect, and absolute safety. Before we begin, make yourself comfortable. Adjust your pillows. Hold a blanket up to your shoulders. Let the events of your own day fade away, like mist evaporating in the morning sun. Imagine you are standing on a cobblestone street. It is night, a thick, heavy fog. The famous London pea souper has descended upon the city. It muffles every sound. The distant clip-clop of a horse-drawn carriage sounds soft and rhythmic. Clip-clop, clip-clop, you walk toward a familiar door. Number 221B, Baker Street. You knock, and within moments, you are ushered inside, away from the cold. You climb the 17 steps to the sitting room. The room is warm. A coal fire is roaring in the grate, casting a gentle, flickering orange glow across the walls. The air smells of old leather, pipe tobacco, and ancient books. In one armchair sits Dr. John Watson, reading a medical journal. In the other, surrounded by clouds of blue smoke, sits Sherlock Holmes. You settle into a velvet chair in the corner. You are merely an observer here. Safe, warm, invisible. Just listen to the rhythm of the rain tapping against the window pane as we open the case files of the world's greatest detective. Our story begins on a night much like this one. Dr. Watson had been away from Baker Street for some time, but the pull of the old room was strong. As he entered, he saw Holmes pacing, back and forth, a silhouette against the drawn blinds. Holmes stopped. He looked at his old friend. With that sharp, hawk-like gaze, he deduced instantly that Watson had been walking in bad weather. Elementary, he whispered. The logic was as comforting as a clock ticking. Their quiet reunion was interrupted by the sound of wheels stopping outside. A carriage, then a sharp pull at the doorbell. Heavy footsteps echoed on the stairs. Thump, thump, thump. The door opened. A man entered who seemed to fill the entire room. He was over 6 feet tall, with the chest of Hercules. He wore a cloak of deep blue, lined with flame-colored silk, and rich boots trimmed with fur. But his face was hidden behind a black mask. He spoke in a deep, vibrating voice. He claimed to be a nobleman, but Holmes, leaning back in his chair with his eyes closed, simply said, "Your Majesty." The mask was removed. The King of Bohemia stood before them. He was a man of power, used to commanding armies, but tonight he was powerless. He was haunted by a ghost from his past, the ghost of a woman, Irene Adler. To Sherlock Holmes, she is always a woman, Watson would later write. The king explained his plight slowly. He was to be married to a strict princess, but Irene possessed a photograph, a picture of the two of them together. If she released it, the king would be ruined. He had tried to steal it. He had tried to buy it. But Irene Adler was not an ordinary woman. She had the face of the most beautiful of women and the mind of the most resolute of men. Holmes took the case, not for the money, The king laid a heavy bag of gold on the table. But for the puzzle, the next morning the fog lifted slightly. Holmes transformed himself. He became a drunken groom, spending hours at the stables near Bryony Lodge, where Irene lived. He watched the horses. He listened to the gossip of the stable hands. He learned the rhythm of her life. He discovered something unexpected. Irene Adler was leaving. She had married a lawyer named Godfrey Norton in a rushed, quiet ceremony that very morning. Holmes, hidden in the shadows of the church, had even been pulled into act as a witness. It was a chaotic scene, but now the game had changed. If she was leaving England, she would take the photograph with her. That evening, the street outside her house was busy. Holmes, now disguised as a simple, kind clergyman, put his plan into motion. A stage fight broke out in the street. Holmes pretended to be injured, bleeding from a small cut. Kind-hearted as she was, Irene ordered him to be carried into her sitting room. The room was lined with books and soft furniture. She rushed to the window for air. At that moment, Watson, waiting in the shadows outside, threw a smoke rocket into the room and shouted, "Fire!" Panic is a powerful instinct. Even the strongest minds react to it. In that moment of confusion, amidst the smoke and the shouting, Irene Adler did not run for her jewels. She did not run for her gold. She ran to a secret sliding panel behind the bell pull. There, hidden away, was a photograph. Holmes, watching from the sofa with half-closed eyes, saw exactly where it was. He did not take it. He simply needed to know. The smoke cleared. The panic subsided. Holmes slipped away into the cool night air, satisfied. The puzzle was solved. The king was safe. Let us pause here for a moment. Imagine the scene at Baker Street after the adventure. The fire has burned down to glowing red embers. The room is quieter now. Mrs. Hudson enters silently with a silver tray. The teapot is porcelain, painted with delicate blue flowers. She pours the tea. The sound of the liquid filling the cup is soothing. Swish, swish. Steam rises from the cups, carrying the scent of bergamot and warm milk. Outside, the rain has started again. It washes over the cobblestones of London, cleaning the city, lulling it to sleep. The world outside is dark and wet. But here, in the sanctuary of 221B, everything is calm. Holmes picks up his violin. He plays a low, melancholic melody. The notes float in the air, hanging like smoke. Into this peaceful atmosphere came a new visitor, a man named Jabez Wilson. He was a very ordinary man, a pawnbroker with a round, flushed face, but his most striking feature was his hair. It was a bright, fiery red, like a burning flame. He sat in the chair where the king had sat. He told a story that sounded like a dream. Weeks ago, his assistant had shown him an advertisement in the newspaper. The Red-Headed League. It said, "A bequest from an eccentric American millionaire, offering a salary of £4 a week for purely nominal services to any man with red hair." Mr. Wilson applied. He described the scene to Holmes. Fleet Street was choked with red-headed men. Men with hair like carrots, like bricks, like Irish setters. But Wilson was chosen. His job was remarkably dull. He had to sit in a small, empty office for 4 hours every day. He was not allowed to leave, and he had to copy out the Encyclopedia Britannica, letter by letter, word by word. The archery, the architecture, the Attica. The scratching of his pen against the paper was the only sound. Scratch, scratch, scratch. For 8 weeks he did this. It was hypnotic, repetitive, boring, and he was paid in gold. Then suddenly it ended. He arrived at the office to find a card pinned to the door. The Red-Headed League is dissolved. Holmes laughed. It was a gentle laugh. He loved the bizarre. But beneath the humor, his mind was racing. He asked about the assistant. He learned the man spent hours in the cellar of the pawn shop, developing photographs, he claimed. Holmes's eyes narrowed. He knew. He invited Watson to join him for a walk. They traveled to Saxe-Coburg Square. The pawn shop was a modest building. Holmes walked in front of it. He thumped his walking stick heavily on the pavement. Thump, solid, thump, solid, thump, hollow. He smiled. The pieces fit. The assistant, the cellar, the bank that stood directly behind the shop. The encyclopedia was merely a way to get the pawnbroker out of the house for 4 hours a day. That night, they did not sleep. They waited. Imagine the darkness of a bank vault. Holmes, Watson, a police inspector, and a bank director descended into the cellar of the city and suburban bank. They turned off the lanterns. The darkness was absolute. It was thick, velvety, and silent. They sat on crates, waiting. For an hour, nothing happened. For 2 hours, only the sound of their own breathing. Inhale, exhale. It is a test of patience. In the dark, time stretches. The smell of the earth and cold stone surround them. Then a sound, a scratching. A stone in the floor turned. A beam of light shot up from the ground. A hand appeared. A young man climbed out the assistant. He was John Clay, a notorious thief, coming to steal the French gold. But Holmes was there. He sprang from the shadows. There was no violence, only the swift click of metal handcuffs. The thief was caught. The tunnel was discovered. The bank was safe. Back in Baker Street, as the sun began to rise over the foggy rooftops of London, Holmes explained it all. It was a chain of logic, unbreakable and perfect. He lit his pipe, the smoke curling around him, and closed his eyes. The mysteries are solved. The king has his reputation. The pawnbroker has his answer. And Sherlock Holmes has his silence. The fire in the grate has turned to ash. The room is cooling. The gas lamps are turned down low until they are just tiny blue specks in the darkness. Dr. Watson closes his journal. He places it on the desk. Outside, the great city of London sleeps. The horses are in their stables. The shopkeepers are in their beds. The fog holds the city in a gentle embrace. You are safe here. The door to 221B. Baker Street closes softly behind you. Let the darkness wrap around you. Let the quiet fill your mind. There are no more puzzles to solve tonight. Only rest. Good night.